What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to episode number 301 of the VK Bros with Jason and Alex VK. Had some brief technical difficulties to start the show, so...
Episode 301.1.
Yeah. How are you going this week, Al?
I'm good. I'm great. We had a short week, went to the beach, been out wining, dining, went out for drinks last night. It's great.
Nice.
Gym this morning, lift huge still. Life's good.
Happy days. Life's good. Well, my life's good too. I'm just going to crack straight into the show this week. This week, guys, we are going to go into a lot of stuff around the economy, around politics, around interest rates. Obviously, this week we've had interest rates get raised again. We've got the budget coming next week. So there's lots and lots to talk about in regards to those things and also the wider economy. Alex, you wanted to start off talking about fuel stock holdings in Australia because that's obviously a very key point to this whole discussion of costs.
Yeah, so I've been keeping an eye on this fuel stocks, like the minimum holding obligation for Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And it does give you a little bit of insight. I also keep an eye on the barrel price, which is currently, as of we are Friday, it is currently $95 US per barrel.
Okay.
Call it 96, 101 for UK oil, which is down a little bit from what it was a couple of days ago. It went as high as $108 in the last week. But this is the one I've been keeping an eye on. So the gasoline, which is used for cars, primarily cars, is at 43 days. That number's actually gone up over time, which means we're holding more stock, which is good. Kerosene is 28 days, which is a little bit lower than it was before. And diesel's at 33 days, kind of average. The reason why I brought it up today in particular, though, is there is some tumultuousness in the airline industry. So the kerosene is specifically used primarily for jet engines. And we've had a US carrier go down, Spirit Airlines, fell over. And you've got Emirates in the Middle East essentially stop, I think it was 80% of their flights. They've cancelled them. Now, it could be argued whether that's war-related or it's fuel-related, or it could be both.
Yep.
Funny little anecdote is that it looks like an influencer is on the path to crowdfunding the purchase of Spirit Airlines. And it might sound insane, right, that someone can go and buy an airline, but I read a guy's book, and I'm terrible with names. I won't remember his name. I won't even remember the name of the airline. This guy started as a party promoter, and you know those people, like, you're walking through Surfers Paradise and they'll say, hey, do you want to come to this party? And they'll sell you a package and take you to all these bars.
That's how Chris Williamson started too, isn't it?
Yeah. So he was doing that and then realised, he sort of had filled his town with all the venues. He'd exhausted all the venues. Mm-hmm. And he's like, he started renting buses to take them to towns over.
Yeah.
And then he realised he could pick up a flight one way that they would almost pay him to fill it to send people back.
Right.
Because everyone was coming one way. Then he realised he could buy the route. So he purchased that flight route and you lease the planes.
Interesting.
So as long as your lease payments are lower than your income from the ticket sales,
you're making money. And
then he became a big player in the aeronautical scene, which is pretty cool. So it's not a ridiculous thing to go I'm just going to go buy Spirit Airlines.
I think it's pretty clever too to crowdfund the purchase of Spirit Airlines as well, because you take everyone's money and you own the stake in the airline.
Well, no, he's giving everyone voting rights.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and he said it doesn't matter if you put $100,000 in or $100 in, you all have the same vote. So he's saying he's nationalising the airline.
Right.
Now, my gut's I don't like it, but it's no different to a government taking over it, only doing it this way will probably work better.
Yeah.
Okay? You've got actual vested interest in it.
Yep.
These people actually want to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have the support of all the people that pledged money towards it.
But you also don't have unlimited funding as well. So you actually have to build efficiencies and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, bingo. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll keep an eye on that story and I'll report back. But Emirates in I think they're based in UAE. They've cancelled like 80% of their flights, and it's a mix of the war, because a lot of the routes through there are too dangerous to fly through.
Yep.
They've furloughed a lot of their staff as well. Now, I wonder if there's going to be some reverberations throughout the whole flight scene.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably something to keep an eye on, especially if you're a savvy investor. Think about like during COVID when there was lockdowns. If you were to just, park some money in some of these big carriers, they're going to come back.
If you would have bought Qantas at the bottom before they got the $2 billion bailout, you'd be laughing.
Yeah, like Joyce was. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Fuel price, like from a car industry point of view, I sense a little bit of a turn, at least in sentiment in the market. Yep. So I wouldn't say the results exactly there yet.
They have come down significantly over the last few weeks, though.
Well, okay, interesting. If you go to car sales now and search almost any car and see it listed, every car says under market value, because the algorithm hasn't caught up to the market.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Okay, So just be careful. If you're looking at car sales and you think it looks like a deal, it might not be a deal.
Yeah.
All right?
Yep.
But there seems to be more momentum in the retail side of used cars at the moment. So I wonder if people are now just getting used to the fact that this is what the price is going to be. And even with the interest rate rise, we sort of, everyone I've spoken to has had a big uptick in inquiry. So maybe we're turning the corner on that. Again, I'll watch your space, because the fuel price isn't exactly low. I still paid $2 for petrol yesterday.
Yep.
Diesel's still $2.39. And when does the tax exemption was 3 months?
Yeah.
When's that up?
I'm not sure, but there is talk about them potentially extending it as well.
So I think it's something worth keeping an eye on. It's going to probably circle back to when we talk about interest rates as well. Or should we do it now?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's actually a really good segue into this next conversation, because I think the reduction in the fuel excise is a perfect example of everything that is wrong with the Albanese Labor government. So we had a discussion on the show at the time when he announced that they're halving the fuel excise, and I said that they shouldn't do it. The whole point of having high fuel prices was to get less people to use fuel. It's literally in our national emergency fuel plan that you allow the market to increase prices to slow down fuel usage, right? It's literally part of the plan. But again, what does Albo do? What's going to get me the most votes? So the thing that gets you the most votes is you look like you are helping people afford their fuel. Except you're also prolonging the fuel crisis at the same time, because you're adding additional demand that would not be there had you not stripped out the excise. You're also going to add additional cost in taxation down the track, because obviously that money was already budgeted and spent. So that extra money that they lose from halving the excise, they've got to pick up from somewhere else. So that's going to be in the form of new taxes and those sorts of things. And this is very symptomatic to me of how this government has operated ever since they won their first election back in 2022. It is very much all about what are the political optics to the masses as opposed to what is the right way to govern. So just to give you another example, they constantly talk about raising the minimum wage because they know so many of their voter base is a minimum wage worker. So it sounds really, really good. It sounds like you're trying to help those people. But in reality, all that raising the minimum wage has done has increased inflation, because you're giving a lot of people additional money to spend into the economy, an economy that is overheated already. And at the same time, you're adding additional cost to business of employing those people. Therefore, the price of their products has to increase to cover the additional cost. So you end up being caught.
Also, more money chasing the same goods.
Yeah. So you're stuck on this hamster wheel of increased minimum wage, I improve, and then I lose all that through inflation. And then that justifies more cost of living measures from the government. So as you can see, this is the thing that we talk about constantly on this show. It's the difference between doing good and looking like you are doing good. And I think that this government prioritizes looking like they are doing good, even though they know full well that the downstream consequences of their actions are going to make the problem a lot worse.
So I had a talk to one of my friends about this, and he identified everything correctly except the role of government. Right. And what you said is a great way to put it, which is the assumption is the government's here to help us.
Yeah.
But like you just said, if they were going to help us, they would do the opposite of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
All they're trying to do is stay in power.
Yes.
And as soon as you know that that's their modus operandi, well, you're not going to take what they say the way that they want you to.
And it's not even that you're not going to take it the way you want to. It actually makes their governance make sense. You've just got to do that reframing, right? That reframing of they're not here to save me, they're in it for themselves. And when you realize they're in it for themselves, and all the other decisions make sense. So again, like interest rates got put up again this week. Now, a lot of people have been saying under this Labor government, we've had 15 rate rises. And that is true, but I also think that that's a bullshit way to speak about it because at the end of the day, they did inherit a high inflation economy due to COVID. It was bipartisan. Liberal and Labor both agreed upon the spending measures that happened during COVID, which means they inherited a high inflation economy. However, the way that they have governed since then is the polar opposite to a lot of the other major economies in the world. And that is the reason why we are the only major economy that is having to put up interest rates. We are also the major economy that has had the highest slide in a standard of living in the last 4 years, which is a direct result of these government policies. And so the thing that really frustrates me at the moment, and I'm seeing this a lot on social media, I'm sick of everyone railing against the Reserve Bank. I'm sick of it. And just to give the people the reason why, the Reserve Bank has a mandate. They were put in place to do a job. And that job is to keep inflation between 2 and 3%. And I think Alex...
Sorry, it was supposed to be 1 and 2%.
Yeah.
We've just stretched that to 2 and 3%.
And I think that Alex and I would argue that if you really wanted to run a country for the benefit of the people, you would target 0% inflation, because over time, assets shouldn't just become more expensive just for the sake of it. Like your dollar should actually go further and further over time as you build efficiencies into your production.
That is a debatable thing. So I'm obviously a Bitcoin guy, and Bitcoin is a deflationary. It's a fixed supply thing. Mm-hmm. So it is a very highly inflationary thing compared to the dollar that it's underwritten by.
Yep.
But the idea, like, if you are a holder of Bitcoin over time, your life has gotten cheaper, not more expensive.
Yep.
Which is the opposite to what the dollar does. The argument against why you shouldn't have zero inflation is economic growth. So you don't get economic growth if the incentive is to hold on to the assets that you have.
Yep.
If you are designed to spend it, you grow an economy faster, then there should be an argument over how much growth is, or how much inflation is good or bad. Mm-hmm. I think less is better than more. You know, if you were to extrapolate out Venezuela I think at one point they were 30 million% inflation per year is a bad thing. You might say 0.5% inflation might have a very slow and boring economy. That's probably something closer to maybe Switzerland, where they are very, very responsible fiscally as a country. Mm-hmm. You need to find a balance point between the two, or do what we're doing and mitigate that by owning assets that are that help mitigate against inflation.
Yeah, but this is like the buzz term at the moment from the government is intergenerational fairness. And when you have inflation at, even if it's call it 1% per year, that's where you create intergenerational unfairness, because every subsequent generation that comes along enters, say, the workforce or begins their life trying to accumulate assets that have experienced compounding inflation over decades and decades prior to them.
Sure. The fix though is not to mitigate essentially the inflation number. I mean, it is part of it. You can have an economy that inflates heavily, but if you are increasing your productivity in excess of that inflation rate, everyone gets richer and those assets come closer to you from an affordability standpoint.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing the opposite. When we keep saying it, and I want to keep mentioning it, productivity is the main issue in Australia, not necessarily asset prices. Asset prices happens to be the easy thing to do. And to agree with what you're saying, my friend was blown up about the Reserve Bank, and I was like, they have one job.
Yeah.
And the inflation rate was 3.8%, which is nearly double what the target is.
Yep. And that was prior to the Iran war kicking off too.
Yep. All they can do is up interest rates to slow spending. That's all they can do. So of course they're going to do it. Like, it doesn't. Correct. You don't have to be a genius to do it. What's interesting, what he kept saying is his social media world is saying the opposite. Oh, we're all surprised by the fact that it went up. Dude, it's you're an idiot.
And look, for those of you who are long-term listeners of the show, you will know that over 12 months ago, when the Reserve Bank first started putting rates down, we said that the interest rates were going to go back up after the election. And if you want to make an argument that the RBA have done the wrong thing, I would argue they did the wrong thing 12 months ago by putting interest rates down when inflation was still outside the band. Right? That was a politicized move, and it's clear as day, because the 3 rate reductions they gave you last year, they've already removed. We have built in and embedded in an additional 12 months of additional inflation over the top of what we should have had over the last 12 months. And they're also saying that rates are probably going to have to go up again later in the year. I was actually a bit surprised that they didn't go up 0.5%, not 0.25% this week.
Yeah, and I remember times when they would go up in bigger steps. But what I found very interesting is what Bullock had said, the boss of the Reserve Bank, where she basically said, even factoring in the increase in fuel cost to the public, it's not enough to curb the spending.
Yeah.
But the way she said it, I think we were supposed to read between the lines. She's not talking about the public.
No, she's talking about the government spending.
She's talking about government spending.
And this
so no matter how much you save, you are at the moment, you cannot outpace what the government is spending in the marketplace, and which is purely inflationary.
And the thing is too, and this gets me back to my original point about the Albanese government runs itself based on optics and what it can get away with to win votes rather than what is the right thing to do. So we've mentioned a million times, ad nauseum. In January, the numbers came out that the Albanese government had overspent its 6-monthly forecast by $50 billion. So you mortgage holders out there who've just increased your interest rate by 0.25%, so the average mortgage is paying somewhere around an additional $100 a month just from this week's decision alone, on top of the 2 previous ones. So you're probably somewhere between $300 and $450 additional after tax every month that you've got to find to pay your existing mortgage. Nothing that you do can change what the government is doing. And so not only do they overspend by $50 billion, but it's the immigration thing again. So we said it on the show a little while ago. In January, we brought in the highest amount of immigrants in a January. The second highest amount of immigrants for a January on record. The February numbers just came through and they got worse. We brought in over 3,000 people per day just in February alone. So you've got to think, right? We're squeezing mortgage holders, which are 30% of the population. 30% is getting absolutely squeezed and wrecked right now. So your mortgage goes up, but an extra 3,000 people enter the country per day. And again, it is more demand pressure. You've got 3,000 people more day who need housing, goods and services, who are spending money into the economy, chasing the same amount of goods that were there the day before. That's drastically inflationary. But the government keeps coming out and saying, like, Jim Chalmers, immediately after Michelle Bullock made the announcement, immediately Jim Chalmers comes out and gets on the propaganda train and says that the Reserve Bank has said it had nothing to do with government spending. It's everything to do with government policy. And I've been saying this for 3 years now. The three main drivers of inflation in Australia are government overspending, and that's, again, in increasing the public service, giving wage increases to public service staff members. It's all of the cost of living relief they keep handing out. All of that stuff is directly inflationary. So that's number one. Number two is the net zero energy policy. So it's funny, isn't it? You're talking about the fuel crisis now, and the government's talking about the fuel price. And they're talking about how the increase in fuel price is going to work its way through and create inflation in all parts of the economy, right? Because every part of the economy relies on fuel. Well, every part of the economy also relies on energy costs. Therefore, when you have increased the price of energy by about 30% over the last 3 years, all of that is feeding through. And that comes directly from the net zero policy. So you've got government overspending, you've got net zero policy making energy costs too high, and on top of all of that, you've got mass immigration coming into the country. And this is one of
no, you need to add this. This productivity is a bigger issue than the things that you've just said. Mm-hmm. I think the things that you have said are the easy ones to point to, because a lot of it is outside of government spending. It's very easy to say outside influences have done that. But this graph that I just pulled out is from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. The data is old, so it doesn't have the 26 data, but I can guess what it's going to be. You know, we could trend line it out.
Yep.
This is market sector productivity growth judged by the hours worked. So if we go back to 1995, we're at 1.4 to 2%, depending on which market you're looking at. Okay, multi-factor product. What is multi-factor? Multi-factor. So key statistics: the market sector labour productivity decreased. On hours worked. Okay, so look at this trend line. So from a high in 97, 98 of 4.4%. Sorry, 4.7% in 2001.
Yep.
We have been on a downward trend to the 2024-2025 is minus 0.5%. Now, what does this mean? This means that we are not only are we not productive, we are counterproductive.
Yeah. Which is also a direct result of government policy, because a lot of that comes from regulation.
It is all about that.
Yeah.
It is all about that. It's about every law, every rule, every piece of red tape, every license, every piece of paperwork. And just to paint a little bit of a picture, when I first started my Auto Bros business, when I changed from personal to a company, I had to get a new dealer's license, right? It's the exact same test, right? With the exact same details, no difference. And I was like, okay, well, do I give up my personal license then? Because now I have this company one.
No.
You have to have that one as well. Okay, so I have to pay twice, and it was $3,500 each, right? Then the lady at Fair Trade said to me, oh, this is going to take between 6 and 14 weeks for us to process it. You are not allowed to operate your business until you get this.
Yeah.
So what does that do for productivity?
Yeah.
So because of the government bureaucracy, I just can't trade. Now I just traded under the license I already had. But it's things like that inbuilt into the system, and only more of these laws are coming out. There's no laws being repealed.
Yep.
0 laws are being repealed, and every day there's new laws coming. I remember the crazy one, dude, button batteries, little batteries that you put in keys. A new law came out that said there will be spot checks, and if they're not enclosed in a specific container with markings on it telling children not to eat them, you could get fined $16,000.
That the children can't read anyway.
Correct, right?
Yep.
There's new policies like that are coming out for business every fucking day. And every time you do it, you're adding a cost to business. We've covered on here, anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism financing, costs industry $6 billion a year and stops nothing.
I can't remember if we covered it on the show, but I saw recently in a Senate estimates hearing that is it Andrew Bragg was asking someone from some housing bureaucracy about the additional red tape that's being brought in on new builds. And they were talking about how there is a mandate now for new builds that you have to build, quote unquote, livable housing. And he's like, well, what does livable housing mean? And she was saying that, say, young people now want to build a house, if you're building a toilet, for example, you have to build a toilet with a railing so that a disabled person, or if you become disabled in your life, you have the ease of being able to get up off the toilet. You have to build slightly larger door frames for wheelchair access, all this sort of shit. And so he's like, but how, like, have you guys done the modeling on how many people live in the same house for 50 years in Australia? And she's like, oh, well, we haven't done that modeling. So it's like, you're telling people they have to build these houses. And again, for them, it's not saying they have to build it because then they might sell it to someone who's handicapped down the track. They're saying it's for them. So for your safety, you have to build non-standard housing, which adds extreme costs. Now,
well, Victoria tried to slam it in too, where they wanted wheelchair access. They wanted ramp access to every single new build. Now, they had to get rid of it because they had building company after building company literally falling over saying, we can't afford...
Which we're still having now.
To do this. But think every industry you can think of, go and ask anyone that owns a business and go up to them and ask them, hey, what laws have changed recently that affect your business? And they'll have pages
I'll rattle them off.
Of bullshit.
Now, speaking of the immigration thing, how do you think this affects productivity, Alex? Parents currently make up the largest portion of permanent visa applications. Partners are the second largest. Skilled independent is the smallest by far. So,
of course, we knew this.
Right? So when we're talking about bringing in 3,000 people per day in February, the vast majority of those people are parents or partners of people that are already here. But the government keeps coming out and telling you, oh, we have a skills shortage. We're bringing in skilled migrants. No, for every one skilled migrant, you're bringing in two of their parents, one of their partners, potentially their kids. A lot of these people end up going on some form of welfare program as well. Like, this is destroying the country. And it's all down to government policy, which is built around buying votes and looking like they're doing the right thing. And again, the thing that I've been saying for years now, long-term viewers will remember, and I reckon we passed the tipping point. My number one concern has been the Labour/leftist playbook all around the world has been make your people so broke and dependent that they are forced to vote for you to live and you become a one-party state forever. And I can't remember if we spoke about this on the show last week. Maybe we didn't. Tony Burke was on a podcast during the week, an Indian immigration podcast, and he was talking about how he wants to have citizenship pathways for the 2.9 million temporary visa holders that we've got in this country.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting stat for you guys. In the last federal election, now you've got to remember, the Albanese government has a massive majority in the parliament. I think they've got 95 seats, something obscene now. They can pass whatever they want, whenever they want, which is why in the last sitting week before they went on holidays last time, they passed 20 different pieces of legislation and they guillotined debate because they're like, we don't even need to talk about these things because we've got the numbers, right? That's the position we're in at the moment. So in the last federal election, the Albanese government won that massive majority with only about 34% of the primary vote. It was only about 4 million people voted their primary vote to Labor in a country of, say, 27 million people, and let's say that there's 18 to 20 million people who are eligible to vote. So you don't have, non-citizens can't vote and kids can't vote, right? So you cut those people out. Here's the thing, though. They were able to get that much of a majority government with only 4 million votes. Imagine if they give citizenship to 2.9 million people.
Yeah.
Who do you think they're going to vote for?
Yeah.
You'll become a Labor country forever. And if you think that this is a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, all you need to do is go back to the last election and look at the news stories about Tony Burke going out to local councils and getting them to rush through citizenship ceremonies so there would be more citizens in particular seats prior to the election.
Matt Barry talks about where all the housing developments are getting
Yeah.
for social housing, it's always in liberal hotspots.
Yep. Safe liberal seats. They build social housing there, send migrants to them, and they plan on flipping the seat over time.
Yeah. And if you go back and look at any Australian history, like political history, this is a game that both parties play. They are in it for power.
Yes.
They're not in it for us. They're in it for power. And that's why we need to step out of this, and we need to go to we need a new system. We do need a new system.
It's not even a new system. Like, we have a cultural problem in this country, a massive culture problem. And for those of you who are our age and maybe even a bit older, you'd probably remember, like, we grew up mainly in the 90s. And in the 90s, it was seen as a negative to take money from the government. Everyone wanted to pay their own way. It was a point of personal pride to be a net.
Look how prosperous it was. Look at
There you go.
The lowest point of productivity was 0.5% in 1999 to 2000.
And that was the .com bubble burst, right?
Yeah, but now we're 1% down today to what we were at the worst, but we're also at the absolute highest, 97, 98, 4.4%.
And do you know what's interesting about that 97 to 98 number? I believe it was 1996, which was debt-free day under Howard and Costello, which was the day that we had officially had $0 of national debt. So when you consider the fact that we had 0% national debt and then all of a sudden productivity and growth followed, that is a natural byproduct, right? Because all of a sudden, the tax burden on the people can be lowered because we're not paying anything off. Fast forward 30 years' time, we have the polar opposite problem. We've got, coming on, $1 trillion worth of national debt. We are spending millions of dollars a day just in interest payments on the national debt. Now, I had a chat to ChatGPT about some things before the show, and what I was trying to get at was, what were the promises the Albanese government made in the lead up to not only last election, but the 2022 election? What were the promises made? What are the promises that have been kept? But more importantly, what are like the second order consequences of some of these promises that have been kept? And it was a big thing. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But what I found interesting at the end of it, it said broader political interpretation, because there's quite a lot of promises they did keep. There's quite a lot of promises they didn't keep, but also it is arguable as to whether or not the promises they kept is actually a good thing or not. So the broader political interpretation was this. Supporters argue that Labor inherited high inflation, which I agree they did.
I agree with, yep.
Global energy shocks, which, yes, I agree they did.
Agree with.
Housing shortages, I would argue.
So we were building more. We didn't really have. Well, sorry, you had an asset price pump due to money creation,
money printing. Yep.
During COVID.
Yep.
COVID, which is more so the problem.
Yeah, I don't think you can argue there was a housing shortage when we weren't allowing people to come into the country.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
And look, weak productivity growth. Yes, that is true. Now, critics argue that Labor overpromised on living costs, which we can agree on.
Categorically, yep.
Relied too heavily on demand-side housing support. So in other words, demand-side support is things like the 5% deposit guarantee. So they tried to fix the housing prices by getting more demand into an overcooked housing market.
Did you see the stat that though people who have taken on that 5% deposit initiative have double the delinquency rate at non-versions?
Which is exactly what we warned about.
Yep. So basically saying that if you took on that initiative, you were twice as likely to not pay your bills.
Yes, because if you're only putting 5% deposit down, you're probably getting a close to $1 million mortgage, maybe even higher, which means with the 3 rate increases that you've already experienced, you're probably paying an extra $600 a month after tax just to service your loan.
I also think from a psychological standpoint too, I think a lot of people thought they were protected because they're going in cahoots with the government for it.
Yeah, but you're not. You are boomers exit liquidity. That's what you really were.
Yeah. Yep. Dumb money.
Yep.
Dumb money.
So critics argue they failed to materially improve affordability for renters and younger Australians, which again is something.
Agree.
Sorry?
Agree.
Yep. And that's something where I need younger Australians to listen right now, because the government keeps coming out there saying, we are doing these things for you. But they said that for the last 4 years, and the things they have done have failed and made it worse. Okay? So it's a difference between sounding like you're doing the right thing and actually doing the right thing.
Yeah.
They broke several high-profile tax commitments, so we'll end up seeing the flow-on effect of that from next week, probably with the budget, where they're talking about CGT removals and all that sort of stuff. The strongest empirical achievements were in institutional reform, so the National Anti-Corruption Commission, which I would argue, yes, they did it. Has it done anything? Fuck no.
Yeah.
Right?
Others would hear about it.
Renewable energy investment, they're putting up as one of their major wins.
What an interesting way, there's a very typical government way to brand success.
Mm-hmm.
Look how much money we
put into it. Yep.
And I know for a fact of a friend's ex-wife used to work for a government agency, and her job was to audit these government payments.
Mm-hmm.
And she said 80% of the payments went through would have failed the audit.
Yep.
And yet that department won an award because of how much money they put out into the system. So their metric was how much, like, dollars go up, like NDIS.
Yep.
They were look how much we're putting billions. We're paying billions. Look how good we are.
Yep.
Whereas a business would never say that. A business would say, we've made this, like, we've got this much profit,
yep,
or we've got this many customers, we're getting this yield on our investment. It's the opposite.
And again, on a real brief on the NDIS, because I was listening to one of Carl Stefanovic's shows about this during the week, it would be the easiest thing to fix in the world. 94% of providers aren't registered with the NDIS, and it's something like 90% of the claims that get sent through have no supporting evidence. Have any oversight, and you'll save billions of dollars. And the last thing that the strongest empirical achievement was in health affordability measures. So that's with things like the pharmaceutical benefit scheme, like making medicines cheaper. They argued that those Medicare urgent care clinics, which they claim that they opened up all these urgent care clinics. All I know is that in my area, existing clinics were just relabeled as urgent care clinics, and they were included in those numbers. So I just want people to think about this from a perspective of like where the economy is at, how your life is at the moment. ChatGPT said that the strongest empirical achievements for this government have been in institutional reform, health affordability, and renewable investment acceleration. Those are the only three things they're saying are the best commitments they kept to.
But let me touch that second point. Read the second point again.
Health affordability measures.
Okay. Who pays for that?
We do.
We all do.
Yeah.
So this is what I hate when people say we have free healthcare. We don't have free healthcare. We all have to pay for it. Right?
Yep.
So it ain't free. And now it's not free, and it's not free.
No, like remember how Albo keeps standing up on TV, go, you just need one of these Medicare cards and you could get free healthcare. No, you fucking can't. I went to the doctors this week. I had to pay $80.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you got a Medicare card, yeah, you get free healthcare if you're a pensioner or if you're a child. But for most adults, you're into getting these like mixed payment scenarios now. Because again, like,
but
it's the doctors can't keep up with the cost of living either.
Sale. It's free at point of sale.
Correct.
It's not free.
No, because your tax dollars will just pay the bit that you get back from Medicare through the Medicare levy surcharge. Anyway, this is what I found most interesting. The weakest outcomes were generally housing affordability, energy prices, and real household living standards. So in other words, the things that most affect your day-to-day life, this government has failed in. Housing affordability, energy prices, and household living standards. Those are like the three things that you basically want the government to look after. Oh, and national defense is the fourth thing.
Yep.
But so in everything that matters, this government has failed. But again, this is where, especially young people, you need to be mindful of the spin that you are going to receive over the coming weeks, and again, in the lead up to the next election. And we'll see this in the lead up to the Victorian election as well. Like, Victoria is in even worse shape than the federal government. They're in $200 billion worth of debt. They have no plan for it.
We have $1 trillion worth of national debt. Victoria State is not in those metrics. No. I don't believe.
It's not. No, national's different to state.
And they have $200 billion worth of debt.
Yeah.
And they're one state.
Yeah.
And arguably a state that should be, maybe New South Wales, Sydney is a real hub, but Melbourne should be first or second for the most prosperous cities in Australia, and they were in the most debt by a country mile.
And like, what have they only got? 5 million people.
Yeah,
I think that's the population. So you got $200 billion worth of debt for 5 million people in a state that should be one of the most prosperous states in the country, and it used to be, right? And you're already seeing that too, because Melbourne and Victoria was the first state in this country to experience downfalls in their housing prices because people can't afford to live down there anymore. Therefore, there's no one who's got the money to buy those assets anymore. So, but like, getting back to the point, I need young people in particular to understand the rhetoric that you keep hearing from politicians every single day is designed to make that you feel either A, they're in your corner, which they're clearly not, which we've demonstrated, or B, if you go against them, you're a bad person because you want to pull funding away from disabled people, migrant communities, insert minority group here, right? That's the play. And you're seeing this in all the advertising, like the anti-One Nation advertising that you see now. They are very concerned about One Nation, and they will just call you all the names. And, you know, we've been through it a million times. You've all been called anti-vaxxers, tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, blah, 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 blah. Don't forget, it wasn't that long ago that Chris Bowen called everyone who talked about there being a fuel crisis a right-wing extremist conspiracy theorist, and then a week later he was up doing press conferences about how we're in a fuel crisis. So it's all this emotionally manipulative marketing. But guys, I actually think that we're really, really close to a tipping point where we lose this country forever. And I don't want that to be hyperbole. I don't want it to be alarmist. But if we do get to a point where we give 2.9 million temporary visa holders citizenship, we're fucked. It's done. Yeah. Because demographics is destiny.
Well, I would also argue that if we went to an election tomorrow, Labor wins again.
I agree. Because we're at that tipping point where more than 50% of the country is directly reliant upon the Labor government's policies for their income.
Yeah.
They've already bought your vote.
There is no second party. So, like, we're arguing that One Nation could be there. And look, maybe not next election, but potentially the election after. Because we know that if and when Labor wins the next one, that'll be 3 in a row. And we've said it here ad nauseum, they've never had a good policy that's going to help anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So it would, and the Liberals are so weak. Who are they fronting for election now?
Angus Taylor.
Where the fuck's he?
Yeah, who?
I haven't heard anything from him.
Because all the Libs talk about now is One Nation.
Which is so dumb.
Yeah.
It's so... And Jason he nailed it. He said early days, like, the problem with conservatives is they're not willing to backtrack on their beliefs.
Yeah.
Whereas the left is... They're collectivists.
They're collectivists,
right?
yeah. The conservatives are freedom-oriented, so they don't play well together. But leftists are communists. They're all in it together.
That's one of the things that annoys me about Rennick. Rennick's really smart.
Yeah.
But he's putting more effort into ripping down
Pauline
mm-hmm. than he is talking about Labor.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing, guys?
And they're all doing it. Matt Canavan did it as well. As soon as he got the Nationals leadership, he started targeting Pauline instead of actually targeting Labor. It's
the lobster in the pot. And that must be coordinated. But you're idiots. Like, you know, we're car salesmen. Sometimes you got to do a dirty deal.
Yep.
Sometimes you do a deal that's for the greater good, and you don't get to benefit as much as you'd like, but you know that it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
Fucking do that, conservatives. Do it. You're not a party.
Yeah.
Like, you've got no... lobsters in a pot. You know, when a lobster tries to get... Or crabs in a pot.
Yeah.
When one crab tries to get out, another crab will grab it and drag it back down. Unfortunately, the Labor crab's already out of the pot. Killing it.
Yeah.
Killing the game.
Yep. And again, like, if you really want to look at... If you wanted some supporting evidence as to whether or not we are correct in that essentially Labor does not care about the conservative vote in Australia. Like, when you look at their the way that the Libs and Labor campaign I find very interesting because they're very, very different. Labor makes zero attempts to convert conservative voters.
Yeah.
Zero.
They just call them racist.
They call them names. Like, they literally antagonize conservatives. The Libs constantly try to convert left-wing voters by being Labor light. So they support them on things like climate change and net zero policy and all of these bullshit things that their own base doesn't like. It's a very different thing. And again, from a strategy perspective, if I was Labor, again, why would you pander to the right-wing conservative vote in this country? Because you're just going to import more voters anyway. You're just going to demographically replace them and be in power forever. That's the game plan. They tried to do the same thing in America. The Democrats tried to do it. Open the borders. They had about 20 million people flood that country in 4 years. They then tried to give, talking about amnesty and trying to give people pathways to citizenship, and then they were going to become a blue country forever. It's exactly what happened to California. California literally did this. Had influxes of all these illegal immigrants, and I can't remember how long ago it was, might have been 10, 15 years ago, but they gave a bunch of them amnesty. And ever since they did that, that has been a blue state. Ever since. That's what the game plan is over here.
Let me show you a clip. So Adrian Portelli, we've spoken about on the show before, Australian-made billionaire. He's the CEO of LMCT Plus. This just happened this week. So he sells memberships, right? $20 a month.
Yep.
You go in the draw to win stuff, win cars and money and houses. And he's now expanding what members get by opening a service station in Melbourne that sells fuel at half price.
Right.
Just got to be a member. Okay. Now, idiots in the chat are like, you're scamming us. It's like, well, here's the maths. You know, if you spend $100 a week on fuel, and that's now $50 a week, but it costs you 20, you're $30 a week better off.
Yep.
You're an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay. But check this out. He just posted this up this week.
Groceries. If you do anything good in Australia, this is how the Australian government treats you. Watch this.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is for the Minister for Roads and Road Safety, and my question is, what traffic management requirements apply to the LMCT petrol station on the corner of Gower Street and Plenty Road in Preston? And Speaker, there appear to be a lot of questions we could ask about this particular business and the larger LCMT business, including questions about whether we need to reform Section 5 of the gambling regulations, which is the section under which these businesses apparently operate. But for nearby residents, the more immediate concern is the frustration of being unable to access their homes or pick up their children from Preston High or from Darebin Childcare and Kindergarten.
Listen to this fucker.
This is Adrian Portelli.
That our tax paying this dickhead's wage absolutely blows my mind. Out of all the things that are happening here in Victoria right now, they've lost complete control of the state. Money's going missing. Our money is going missing. And I will donate $100,000 to the city of Preston if we get rid of this fucking idiot. Instead of trying to cause problems for the business, get your fucking suit off, come down to the petrol station, and let's get to work to help out the locals. Because me, myself, I could be jumping on my jet, heading to Europe on a fucking yacht, sipping champagne, but I'm not. I'm out there every single day, helping the locals, seeing the smiles on their faces when they say half the price on fuel, where they can spend it on necessities of living, groceries, paying the bills, paying the mortgage because the interest rate keeps going up. And here you are complaining about the traffic. From my experience, all I've heard from locals is they're fucking absolutely proud of having the servo in Preston, put Preston on the map. Local businesses are coming to me, thanking me for extra traffic flow to their businesses. Locals are blessed to have something like this right next door that they can save money at. And here you are saying that people can't pick up people from their childcare centre. In fact, I went to the childcare centre and they asked for toys. I didn't say this to anyone, but I gave them $5,000. I hit up Toy World. I always work with Toy World. I called them up. I said, hey, let them choose $5,000 worth of toys to help them out so the kids have new toys to play with. What the fuck are you doing? Get out there and let's get to work.
Now it's embarrassing that one man is doing more for...
Isn't that so? It just goes to show, like, yeah, that's a very much tax the rich, postmodernism, oppressor oppressed thing. But who has the power? He's a politician. He's got all the power.
But I also think that this is even more insidious because government wants you to be convinced that it's only government that can solve your problems. So when an Adrian Portelli goes out there and solves a problem for you that the government has claimed there is no solution to, it makes them look bad, so they're going to destroy him.
It's wild. It's wild. And he is a huge taxpayer.
Yeah.
Right? Massive taxpayer. Tall Poppy, you said cultural issue. This is part of that cultural issue.
Totally.
That we hate billionaires. But
Purple Pingers will claim that Adrian Portelli is exploiting his workers that work at that server.
Yeah. The same workers that get to jump on his private jet and fly to Europe. And
Yeah.
I follow him. I see it all the time.
But also, is this not a perfect illustration of the benefits of capitalism? So,
totally,
in a capitalist
yeah.
system, Adrian Portelli has excelled. He's got billions of dollars. He's gotten to a point where instead, because there are some good people out there, right? Instead of just taking everything for himself and, like he said, getting on his private jet and going off overseas and drinking and having a good time, he's trying to give back to the community. And when he gives back to the community through lower prices, there's probably a lot of busy traffic there. Do you know why? Because it's a product that people want. They want to go and pay the prices for his product. That's why they're going there. And then the local businesses, they get the flow-on effect because it brings more traffic flow to the area. And guess what? They've got more residual money left to spend at those local businesses. So this is like the trickle-down economics that they used to always constantly talk about. But that's it in real action. Meanwhile, what does the government want to do? The government would love it if tomorrow that server got shut down, so those people of the local area would not have the option to go and get that cheaper fuel from that server station and would not be able to spend that money in the local area. That's what the government wants. So the people who claim to be there to help you and save you want the polar opposite for you.
It's very well said. It's crazy. And this is why I hate government, and this is why I love private enterprise. And that's what we should focus on. And private enterprise builds the country, right? That when they are the ones that are supplying the goods and services that are required of the people and wanted by people.
Yeah.
Governments are incapable, structurally incapable of providing that service.
Yeah.
All they do is take.
Yeah. And the way that we change this at a cultural level is you don't give up, you don't quit. So when government comes out and puts more regulation on your business to make your life more difficult, you want to just roll over and go, I'm not doing this anymore. But don't do that. Keep doing it. Keep building your business. Keep building your own personal wealth. If you've got friends who are in business, use their services, buy their products, support each other. It's one of the biggest things that I've always appreciated about America. America has polar opposite mentality society-wise than what we do. We've got tall poppy syndrome over here. Over there, they celebrate success stories. Because in America, they celebrate people who are successful, and they look at that person and they go, if that guy could do it, maybe I could do it too. And it makes them want to give it a go. Whereas over here, we're the opposite. We go, that guy's successful, I hate him and I'm going to tear him down. And therefore, if I ever become successful, everyone else is going to do that to me too. So why should I even bother?
So this is so Kalshi traders have a bullish timeline on SEC's proposed rule to end mandatory quarterly earnings reports. So this is a very nerdy thing, but my mate that works in hedge funds, he talks about this all the time. It costs him thousands of dollars to do the mandatory reporting that the ASX requires him to do.
Yeah.
And he goes, it's a fuck around. And the people that you have to deal with, it's so clunky. I think he even said they only updated it recently. You used to have to fax them in. Now you're allowed to email them.
Right.
So here's Trump who's saying, well, how about we remove this requirement? Removing the requirement adds productivity to the company.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to focus on, they can do it once a year instead of 4 times a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Which reduces the cost, which means that those people that were tasked with doing that job can do productive things.
Mm-hmm.
That is just a small example of things that governments should be looking at doing to help benefit the greater marketplace.
And we do the opposite over here. We are constantly trying to add
opposite.
more regulation on top of business. And again, it's always sold to you under the guise of benefiting you and keeping you safe. But I can tell you right now, guys, your living standards have decreased exponentially because of all the regulation. It doesn't do the things that it says on the box. It does the polar opposite. Now, I've got to wrap it up soon. Can we just cover that update on the vaccine injury lawsuit? So, we haven't forgotten about COVID. There are still some people out there fighting the fight about COVID.
There's a new one coming. Hendra?
I think it's Henta virus.
Henta. So, interesting So, there's an outbreak. 3 people have it in America or something.
Yeah.
I just watched the X-Files movie again.
Right.
They cite that. And they said that exact virus. That was the one that was designed as an outbreak, but it was actually aliens.
Yeah, well, I just posted something up from Dystopian Down Under. There was a post that says, essentially 2 to 3 people may have unfortunately died from a virus that has been around probably at least as long as humans. The news story is that it was made into an international news story. Yesterday, about 4,000 people died of tuberculosis and 2,000 children died of malaria. The same news services missed it. And so that's them talking about a live media briefing on hantavirus hosted by Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization. So again, don't worry about that. Just who cares?
Here we go.
Are you familiar with the hantavirus, Agent Mulder?
Yeah, it was a deadly virus spread by field mice in the southwestern United States several years ago.
According to the newspaper, FEMA was called out to manage an outbreak of the hantavirus. Are you familiar with what the Federal Emergency Management Agency's real power is? FEMA allows the White House to suspend constitutional government upon declaration of a national emergency. Think about that. What is an agency with such broad sweeping power doing managing a small viral outbreak in suburban Texas?
You're saying it wasn't such a small outbreak?
No. I'm saying it wasn't the hantavirus.
Well, what was it?
Vaccine injury, probably. So can you just go to that thing? I just want to read it out. It's just a bit of an update. So it's copied from Facebook. So, hi everyone, Jaden here again from the large Queensland human rights case against the COVID vaccine mandates imposed on the general public in 2021-22. As a reminder, this case has been brought by me, where we have filed 13 expert reports from some of the most senior scientists and doctors in Australia, including Professor Robert Clancy, Professor Wendy Hoy, and Professor Angus Dalgleish from the UK. I have some extremely positive news to share with you all about the important one-day hearing which occurred last Thursday, which was the government's last-ditch effort to have this case dismissed and to avoid a trial. To further remind you, this case is likely the largest human rights case in Australia against COVID vaccine mandates, which is remarkably proceeding to trial. It is also possibly the largest human rights case in the world due to the sheer number of experts who have filed reports. I am pleased to announce that last Thursday, the judge completely rejected the government's arguments at the hearing and effectively mocked the government's legal reasoning. In particular, the judge described the government's arguments as inappropriate and further stated that they should have known better. The judge firmly stated that QCAT was unable to dismiss this case and that the government had misused the tribunal's resources by bringing forth the application. The judge told the parties that he will have a written judgment shortly, presumably by the end of this week or next. I'll publish the judgment in this group once it's received. I've also ordered the transcript of the proceeding. Lastly, and this is where it gets interesting, to further remind you all, this hearing came as a result of the government's refusal to file any evidence in support of the vaccine mandates, despite being ordered to by the tribunal in October last year. It is currently unclear as to whether the government has any experts willing to defend the vaccine mandates, noting it is now 2026. It has also been revealed that the Chief Health Officer did not give the vaccine mandates to stop transmission, which will be a scandal if exposed at trial. Pat Zapier KC flew down from Sydney to represent us at this hearing, who I was able to secure from donations from such people themselves, blah, 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 blah.
That's the health advice, right?
That's the health advice, but also...
Just to go back, every day they would come, the powers that be would come onto the TV and say, due to the health advice, we are doing X, Y, Z. We are stripping you of your rights because of the health advice. What's the health advice? Nah, don't worry about that.
Trust the science. Right? You were told to trust the science. And now, to defend themselves, they were hoping to have this court case thrown out without supplying any evidence as to why. That's your government for you, and your taxpayer dollars are going to fund this bullshit. So keep that in mind next time the government rolls out and goes, we're rolling out cost of living relief to help you to make your lives better.
Just quickly, can we talk predictions of the upcoming budget?
Sure.
So you mentioned at the opening of the show about there's talk of them removing the capital gains discount.
Yep.
I don't think that happens.
I don't think they will either. And do you know why?
Well, it's what we spoke about here, where they throw out the crazy thing, throw out the most far extreme policy.
Yep.
Let it simmer in the marketplace. Give you something short of that. Hey, see, not so bad, huh? Not so bad.
Yeah, I just think that this is their playbook. And it's not even that they give you something less. It's like the left is the party of unearned social clout. You throw out a bad thing and then you don't do it and you get good guy credits for literally doing nothing.
Yeah. I could have beaten my wife, but I didn't. I'm a good guy.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what you'll see. So look, I do think that there'll be some sort of tax reforms or whatever. But look, the number one thing, No. I
don't even want to call it a reform. I don't want to even call it a reform.
Yeah. It'll be a tax grab.
They will slide taxes in.
Yeah.
That won't seem that obvious, and definitely won't seem as bad as the capital gains tax discount. They'll slide ones in, and I bet you, it'll hurt the little guy far more than it hurts the big end of town.
Even when they're talking about those CGT reforms, they were saying it was going to be grandfathered in. So they're trying to sell it to young people, saying we're doing this for generational equity. But the old rich boomers are going to be grandfathered in. They're not going to have those taxes applied to them. It'll be you when you buy your investments. And the other thing, I just need, again, to reiterate to people as well. This is what this government does. They make your life difficult, they make you angry, and then they tell you who to point your finger at. And the new one is they want you to point your finger at the boomers who are sitting in homes that they bought 30, 40 years ago that have appreciated in value. But I need to remind people of two things. Number one, the vast majority of boomers did not write the government policies which created that gigantic asset growth. They just did the thing that everyone was doing at the time because the Australian dream was to own your own home. That's it. Not evil people. Secondly, the most boomers, depending on how old you are, have had 40 to 50 years longer to work and accumulate wealth than you have. It is normal for them to have more wealth than you. And
they were productive.
That's right. But if you're just starting out at 18, of course your parents are going to have more money than you. They've been working for longer than you have. That's how life works. And if you want to have your wealth stripped away from you that you work your entire life for when you're retired, vote for these cunts. But if you think that you should be able to build a life and enjoy the spoils of your efforts in retirement, I would not be voting for these policies.
Well, to tie it to this thing that you just read about COVID, the health advice is what took your rights away, which caused the asset inflation. It doubled the price of housing in 5 years. Mm-hmm. It's caused all the inflation of every item in our worlds right now, and they won't even tell you. They're not willing to tell you where that information came from.
Yep.
That's sadistic.
Absolutely. All right, let's leave it there, guys. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see y'all next week.
Bye.